I believe we have a quorum. We don't have any visitors today. Any conflict of interest declarations by any of the board members or the attendees? Okay. You've all had a chance to have a look at the agenda. If there are no questions or comments, can I have someone move that agenda be adopted as presented? Winston, seconded. Wade, okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by remaining silent. Alan, I did that just for you. Yeah. Any nays may say so now, may speak now. Okay, thank you. Adoption of the minutes of May 26, 2022. You've all had a chance to review those. Any comments, questions? If not, can I have someone move that those minutes be adopted? Heather, as presented, Heather, and seconded by Glenn. Thank you. I see the hands, but I didn't get you quick enough. All those in favor signify by remaining silent. Any nays may speak now. Okay, thank you, everyone. A business arising from previous minutes. May action points update. Paulus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the action points were to schedule a finance and audit committee meeting, but that ended up getting kiboshed. Update of the web page. I think that was referring to the planning website, and that was the earthquake maps and things like that. So that was done. I also made an update to our main website just to bring it up to date and bring documentation up to date that was missing in the document section. And the other action point there was map share moved to the main page of SNBSC's website, including a link as part of the application. And that has been done as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, thanks, Hollis. The next item, we had been looking or had been received a letter from St. John Airport Board of Directors, and they were looking for nominations from RSC 10 for individuals that might like to serve on that board. I think we had a couple of names that were brought forward, so I'll leave that to Hollis to mention the names. I think there were two.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I have Wade Greenlaw has expressed interest in being on the board of YSJ, and so has John Dedarakis. So I would think we would want a motion to forward those names to YSJ. It doesn't mean they're on the board, it just means that those are nominations for their consideration.
Okay, go move. So the motion has been made for Wade and John Dedarakis to be submitted, their names submitted to the St. John Board of Directors for the airport. Do I have a seconder? Dennis? Yeah. Dennis is seconded. All those in favor of those sending those two names forward can agree by remaining silent. Any nays may speak now. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you putting your names in. If you're selected, I'm sure you'll serve us well, represent us well. Local governance reform update. Ken Anthony.
So Ken is not here tonight.
Okay.
He sends his regrets, but I did get him to give me a written report that I've included in the package. You can read it there in the package, but essentially that he reported that on May 26th there was a meeting, working group meeting for RSC 10. They held that here, and that was mostly CAOs. I was in attendance by Zoom myself and several others. And we discussed all the new mandates and what they meant and what they were going to be. Not necessarily how to do them, but just basically discussion of all of the mandates. Economic development. There was a meeting held on Monday, this past Monday. to discuss how we might possibly put that forward. I believe there's a point on our agenda a little bit later to go into more depth into that. So and he goes a little bit about the recruitment process for hiring of a chief executive officer has started. There's a short list of candidates, I guess. I know that personally I have had my second interview. And that's basically the gist of it for now.
Alan?
Yeah, just a question about, oh, I'll get lots of feedback there. So this committee for this with the RSC and all the decisions, or a question, that's my question. Is this committee make decisions, or do they bring it to the board for the decision to be made?
The first committee, the working group committee, there was no decisions made there at all, and they wouldn't be bringing anything to the board. There was some discussion about our economic development on Monday, which would be something that I believe, well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth, but I believe that does come before the board for discussion.
Yeah, anything that comes through the executive is definitely going to be coming to the board for approval, because all the mayors need to have an input into all of that discussion. Yeah, absolutely.
Much appreciated.
Okay. Brad, I see a finger.
Yeah, thanks. I have both my boys playing soccer. I'm in St. Stephen, Alan, so we could have done this together tonight, my friend. I have some questions just about the June 20th meeting. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask them now through you, Mr. Chair, or it would be better to wait till we go in more depth. It kind of is on the lines of what Mayor McEachern was asking about. I was wondering who was invited, who determined who was invited. Was this meeting open to the public? Was it advertised? Is there a recording for the mayors that weren't invited? If not, is there public minutes? Because all this report, to be honest, tells me is that right now, I think it's a closed door meeting that gives no other information other than you had the meeting. And I know month after month, I've been on these calls, and I know other mayors have been, and we've been saying we want to get involved. And here we're seeing that the beginning process is happening, but yet I have had no opportunity, or at least anyone I know from my community, to be involved. And again, it's not that I'm opposing anything. I just want to get involved. And it's really frustrating to hear that these meetings are happening, and there's probably some good ideas coming out of them, but I just want to be a part of them. And again, no disrespect to this report. It tells me absolutely nothing other than people have met with no engagement from my community at this point.
Yeah, well, I can answer to that, I guess. There is we did hold the meeting on the 20th on the economic development. As you're all aware, or maybe you're not aware, I can get into that under the new business if you can wait a couple of seconds for that.
I can.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
I just didn't want to miss my chance to discuss my concerns.
No, absolutely. No, we want to listen to anybody's concerns there.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So we'll move into that as soon as there's one more thing though under the old business that we wanted to talk about that you may not see on your packages, but it did come up, and it's mileage for meetings being held for local governance reform. And we kind of made the decision that we would pay the mileage for anybody that was going to any meetings under the governance reform, but there was no stipend or anything to be paid for the meeting itself or for attending the meeting. It was only to pay for the gas mileage.
So some of the clarity I think that we're looking for, Mr. Chair, is does that include local governance reform meetings that are municipal in nature or just regional service commission in nature?
Well, I don't know about the other mayors, but anything that's done under the municipal umbrella is being paid for by the municipality. So I didn't really look too hard at that one. I really looked more at what was being affected by the RSCs.
So for instance, like our meetings that we would have had this on the 20th, had directly to do with the Regional Service Commission, so mileage would be applicable then, but a meeting that might be about, what do you call now, Eastern Charlotte? I guess that's what we're looking for clarity on. Local governance reform related meetings that are about municipalities that aren't necessarily related to Regional Service Commission. I'm unclear on.
I can clarify if I can.
Go ahead, John.
We have actually made that question with the previous facilitator, and it was, we are all living within like 10, 15 kilometers of the one place, but I just made as a matter of principle to ask, are you going to pay for that? And he says, no municipalities can pay for that. And the question is, how the LSDs pay for that, because they don't have any budget. And, there is no answer to that one, but we're expected to foot the bill, to volunteer for our services and our gas.
Well, I know how I deal with it at mine, and that's if, like, say if my CAO needs to go to a meeting, I cover his expenses under my budget. Because I can't, gas being as expensive it is today, it's fine if you're volunteering your time for the meeting, but for how you transport yourself there, or whether you do a Zoom meeting, I'm not sure, but I think you need to be recompensed for the mileage part of it anyway. So I leave it open to the floor. It's an open question at this point.
So is that something that the local services manager would be involved with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Jared's got his hand up.
So Darren, are you paying the gas mileage for the LSD folks?
Yeah, anytime they are traveling representing the local service district, they can be reimbursed for mileage. Our rate has changed. Any of those travel, our rate has changed, as with the province, so they can claim for the 50 cents per kilometer to travel to any meetings where they are representing their local service district.
Okay. Thank you, Darren.
You're welcome.
Does that answer the question? Okay. So Alan, you had your hand up. Did we answer the question for you, or?
Well, yeah, I think Darren clarified it, but I think just to add what Darren said, I would say that no LSD, this board or the municipality should be paying, because that's not how it works until January. That's a whole different budget. And I think it should go through Darren's office or whatever he's got set up there for any travel related to this. Not sure how big his budget is.
That's for the LSDs? You're saying
No, Mr. Chairman, we don't have a budget for per se for local government reform. We have a budget, small administrative budget for the usually the chair of the local service district is the one representing the LSD, and if they so choose to submit a travel claim on any meetings by which they're representing their local service district, we will reimburse them. Whether it's local government reform or whether they're going to go visit Santa Claus. The bottom line is there is no per se travel budget. There was budget money set aside for advertising. It's been a very shady area. As far as not shady as in underhanded, it's just been very cloudy on the whole process on what costs are going to be reimbursed. But I'm only aware of the costs relating to, the public consultation process. But moving forward, we will always reimburse a local service district chair or the person representing the local service district on behalf of the chair for any travel related expense.
Now, I understand, certainly the board understands that there is no money allocated to the transportation or expenses that the members are incurring because of this local governance reform. But we have to, I guess, in good faith, we pay a gas fee just to help them with getting around to their meetings that they're volunteering for. Everybody okay with that? Okay, does that add enough clarity?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'm good because we don't get invited to meetings anyway, so I won't have any mileage.
We can zoom you in, we'll zoom you in. Under new business, this is where Brad was coming at, economic development meeting update. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting dilemma that we're faced with on this. Everything that we discuss is going to be coming back to the board on economic development and things like that. What I'm finding is that there's very little clarity when these subjects come to the table. And so to try and provide a little more definition as to the pros and cons of things in these proposals or in these directions, I think it's wise that we have a smaller group to look at that first, and then we can bring those pros and cons. We have discussion points and guidelines within which to discuss these topics. And I think that would refine it and make it more worth your while. For example, this economic development meeting that we had, we spent about, I want to say it was about 2.5 hours in length. And quite frankly, the first part of that discussion was, well, what does this mean? What does this entail? What is the definition of what we're trying to accomplish here? And it kind of focused down to, do we do our own economic development or internal to the RSC 10? Do we do an external model where we go to, say, Ignite Fredericton and say, Ignite, you look after all our economic development? Or do we do a hybrid model where we go to, we have somebody on the board, or we hire somebody that would be the economic development rep for RSC 10, but then we delegate that down to, say, Future St. Stephen or one of the other economic development bodies within the region. So we kind of discussed the pros and cons in very beginning terms on that, and certainly we came back with the idea that we wanted a bit of a hybrid model. If you, for example, if we said we're going to do everything internally, well, that means we just blew Future St. Stephen out of the water and the other economic development folks out of the water. And we lose all that expertise, we lose all those contacts. And that's certainly not something that we want to even begin to entertain. Those folks are doing great work, and we want to be able to capitalize on that. If you go to a fully external model, you really, how do you manage inside that model? So if you went to St. John or you went to Fredericton, how do you make your voice heard within that larger entity? And that's always difficult. So we felt that from that perspective, it's better to stay within the RSC boundaries and take advantage of the expertise that we have available. So that was quite a bit of the discussion. But what we did finalize on was that I asked Hollis to go and draft a potential hybrid model hierarchy. So an organizational chart. So that when we come to the board and we want to discuss this further, we have some guidelines within which to focus the conversation. So we'll go back over all three of the options. We'll go through the pros and cons of each option, why we decided that we thought we would go, or sorry, not that we would go, that we would kind of recommend an option or way ahead. And then it's up to the board to make that decision. there's no way that I and my fellows here want to make that decision on behalf of RSC 10. That's for all the mayors and LSD. John?
I just want to understand this new initiative. Has it been clarified who is going to be paying for that? Will it be the municipalities, or is it going to be like some sort of a gift from the province to the region?
I'll hand that over to Hollis.
So I have a contact. Alain Basque is it ADM or DM? I can't remember. ADM. That would be in charge of that. So I've been directed to him, and I sent him a request that I'm going to follow up with to clarify the funding that will come along from either through PEDAL or possibly RDC or a combination of those things, but probably PEDAL. And it's the figure that I've heard, and I've heard this from my other colleagues as well in other parts of the province, is somewhere around $8 per person of your population. So for this, that means somewhere around $240,000 or $250,000 in funding that's available. Now, what I'm not clear on is that Federal is already providing funding to CDEC, and I believe also providing funding to Future St. Stephen. So what happens to that funding? Does that go away? Does this flow through RSC? There's a whole lot of questions we have around that, and that's why we requested that meeting.
Okay, thanks.
A couple of other things with that economic development. I guess the proposal as to what the RSC is going to be responsible for. There was about 4 different things. I wasn't totally happy with what I saw there. A lot of it had to deal with employee retention within the region, how you bring new employees in, how municipalities would be responsible for their industrial parks, and there was something else I can't remember. But that's not the sense that I get from this board in RSC 10. My feeling is that we wanted to play a more active role in actively attracting business to our region. So there's got to be a little bit of pushback on that. Opportunities New Brunswick certainly is a player in that, and so is PEDAL, I believe. So there are some, I had some questions, and we put those back to Ken, and we need to have some clarification on a few things there as well. I'm not interested in just dealing with my industrial park. I want to be able to go out and let the region know what's happening economically so that they can capitalize on each other. So that's the important part. Alan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a mix of all those things, Mr. Chair. Like, because if you don't have employee retention, we're not helping our business that we have in place already, and that's not going to help any new businesses because that's what we're struggling with. So that is going to be one of their roles, is retention as well. But yes, definitely active in new development as well. I would think it'd be the whole role. So, and I'll continue on this. Now, when you say hybrid model, are we talking about having one like an outside and inside together? And my concern with that would be who has the ball, because I don't like having to deal with 2 different people, because sometimes neither one of them have it or they blame the other. I don't want too much government red tape.
What I was looking at there was the government is expecting to deal with the RSC with regards to economic development. So we have to have a portal somewhere that we have coming in from the province into the RSC. But then on the other hand, do you as the RSC go out and hire a whole bunch of people to do that economic development for you? And I would say no, because you've already got that portion of it built within the community in Future St. Stephen and what's the other one, Glenn? Sorry, I've been CDEC for those 2. So they each have their strengths, and certainly they're all their contacts and that. And the last thing we want to do is interfere with that working as well. But on the other hand, we need to know what they're up to and what they're trying to to do so that we can all take advantage of it. So it's just a bit of a, and this is all up for discussion later on. I'm just trying to outline some of the issues I think that are sitting there and how best to approach that. But as I say, once we sit down, once we get this all kind of in our heads as to what the important bits are and how it might look, then we can bring that to you guys, and then you can wail away on it, and we can all come to an agreement as to which way we want to go. But I really don't want to ship this off to an external agency. I don't think that's the way to go, because I don't think we want to lose our say in how we do things. And then and also we don't want to lose the guys that are already working for us. So we've got to find something in between.
So if I can just continue on here a little bit,
Yeah.
there's a reason why Future St. Stephen and CDEC were developed, is because the government wasn't doing the things for our communities. So we got to keep that in mind. You're exactly right, Ken. We got to keep looking after ourselves. No one's going to do it for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Brad, did I hit all your points, or was there something else?
You did, but I have 1,000 questions out of it.
Oh no, bring them on. Yeah.
Well, we're not going to solve it all in this call, but would Future St. Stephen morph into a regional entity that actually starts diving into aquaculture, for example, for the areas of St. George and the islands? Or would Future St. Stephen continue to operate for St. Stephen and then just provide consulting to the board? You know, like there's just with a hybrid model, I have 100 questions just about that. And then the other thing that I'm really wondering is, like, when it comes to tourism, it's a primary industry for St. Andrews. I'm just hoping that I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm on the outside right now and hoping to be able to look in eventually. But with tourism, I got people in my community coming to me every day saying, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening? And I can't give them any answers. And I'm really glad to see conversations are starting to happen. I've had many conversations with Kendall and Future St. Stephen. Definitely a well-oiled machine doing some great things for St. Stephen, and I would say the region. But I guess when it comes to apprehension, the way to overcome it is educate us, and I can buy into it. It's just these conversations that are happening, I'd really like to be just a fly on the wall, just so I can buy into this and be an ambassador for this change and be part of it. It's just I've got people that aren't even on this board updating me on a meeting that's happening that I'm not even invited to. So it's just hard to buy in right now is my only point on that.
Yeah. As far as your questions go, we didn't delve too deeply into those aspects of it. We need to, I know that, you know, these questions are important for everyone, and tourism for everyone, and particularly St. Andrews. I think before we delve into a lot of the detail stuff, we need to get the hierarchy or the organizational structure kind of figured out first. And then we can kind of delve down into what Future St. Stephen and CDEC is going to be doing. For example, when you start talking about aquaculture and those types of things, that didn't even come up on the discussion on the 20th. It was more of who's going to be doing what to whom kind of discussions at that point. Alan?
Yeah, I just want to kind of maybe add some clarity, or not clarity, actually my thoughts on how it would play out. Even let's just say you did adopt CDEC and Future St. Stephen, or combine the two. It doesn't matter. It does matter who you got placed, but they're not going to be directed. Like right now, the Future St. Stephen Kendall is directed by myself and council, right? And a board. But that's so once if this is absorbed into this group, he doesn't answer to one mayor anymore. He answers to this board. And the other thing about expertise in different types of economic development, like ag and aquaculture, I mean, hopefully you'll have members of the board, like we do here in St. Stephen, that have those expertise in from that area or from that business. So that's how I visualize the new RSC 10 board, whatever you want to call it, future RSC 10, or whatever you want guys going to call it. But that's how I see it. Anyway,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Thank you for that, Alan. Yeah, Wade.
So has anybody sat and assessed what the need is first before we build it? We should look and say, you know, the pros got some you know, tourism type things. They might want some economic development. You got St. George, St. Andrews, you got, you know, Macadam. So what's the needs in those areas? What do those areas want? And then you look at what model you're gonna adopt and decide if you can provide those resources to those areas. So, and then you can actually do a gap analysis, what you have today as to what that new need would be. And you can say, you know, the current two sources with an extra body or two are going to work, or those two aren't going to be able to handle the load. As to Brad's comment, St. Andrews is primarily tourism. They're probably somewhat interested in economic development, but there's not a lot of room there. So, you know, and somebody like St. Stephen is probably as much in economic development as they are tourism. So I think probably one of the good things to do first is do a needs assessment to see what the desire is. Just opinion.
No, all good points.
Can I address that?
Certainly, Alice. Yeah.
Yeah, part of the discussion was also that there's a regulation coming out. We already know what's in that regulation, so we need to walk before we run, and we need to meet the needs of that. We need to follow that regulation, whatever that regulated. These are the services you must deliver, so those are the services we kind of need to answer. I agree with everything you said there, Wade, but problem is I need to follow whatever the regulation is first, and then we can add on, you know, stuff later to make it even more valuable. But we need to walk before we run.
Any other questions, comments, Alan?
Yeah, I agree with you, Hollis, about walk before we run, but like, let's say, like what Brad mentioned, like he can't answer questions right now. He kind of needs the same as myself. Like we just can't go in limbo for a while neither. So do we, like, I'm not sure, there's more clarification on how we should handle that.
You know, we had planned on, or at one point we had planned on having an economic development meeting. Maybe we should reinvigorate that and get back and we can thrash some of this stuff out.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I know that Ken Anthony, he had that sort of roundtable meeting. It was the CAOs and some other people like that. But when it comes to economic development, I really think that it ought to be a mayor's kind of meeting instead of CAOs, because there's a disconnect and it's a different dynamic. So maybe that is something, if we do enable, you know, a further discussion on economic development, that it's we invite, well, the whole board.
Because there was two meetings about this. The first meeting was with the CAOs.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, there should have been some information coming from the CAOs to the mayors. Then after that meeting is what really drove the second meeting to say, okay, what's going on here? So I don't know what communication comes from the CAOs to the mayors from the first meeting.
Maybe once I get a meeting with Alain Basque and we get some clarity around what the funding's going to be, we take the next step.
See, and the pedal funding is for what pedal's responsible for. And so they have 3 or 4 things that they're responsible for: population growth, etc. And their funding is only for their mandate. So it's not going to be funding. It's not going to be all the funding that's required.
Right.
John, you have your hand up?
Yes. Hollis mentioned the word that I was trying to get some information a long time ago, and that is regulations. Nobody gave us ever any 30,000 feet overview of what this thing is, what areas they cover, what they're proposing. Are you privy to these things, Hollis?
Well, there is a document out there that delineates, here's what the province does, here's what OMB does, here's what's expected of the Regional Service Commission, and then here's what municipalities are responsible for when it comes to economic development. There is that's out there, and most people should have that.
there was another document, which was the PowerPoint presentation that was green, that had economic development, community development, everything. Everybody should have got that by now.
That one too, yeah.
Yeah, that one had a high level of everything.
Yeah, that one.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my question about the regulation is a bit broader. Is there any index of what these regulations are going to cover? I'm not talking about only economic development or recreation or whatever. Is there any overall chart of what these regulations are going to cover?
I'm not sure, but I know there's going to be regulations for each one of the new mandated services.
So,
Along with guides. No, I haven't seen them yet, but
I wish they would at least give us a 30,000 feet overview of what this thing is going to be. Obviously they're going to deal with the mandates that you mentioned, Hollis, but what else they're going to cover there? So I would like to hear from someone at some point what are these regulations are going to cover.
I think that would assume that they're more organized than they are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The long and short, as we get information, as we get our bearings, we'll definitely keep you all informed, and there will be no decisions made without the approval of the board. Yeah, we just don't operate that way. So, Dennis.
I just
I'd like
want
to say one thing. There's been 2 or 3 times.
Sorry,
now-
Bonnie.
There's been 2 or 3 times now you've mentioned, every time I've heard it's been municipalities. Municipalities don't run it yet, not until after November. So I'd still like LSDs to be included with the municipalities. We went through all this before when we started out, when I first started on the board, to get York County recognized as part of, included with the board besides Charlotte County.
And that, I'd like to add to that. That is a significant problem when we talk about having a discussion on what's gonna happen with the mayors. It can't be with the mayors. It's gotta be. We talked about the mayors versus the CAOs, right? Well, if you look at a lot of the area, it doesn't have a CAO. So you I don't know how you go to if you're gonna go away from the CAOs to the mayors, well, you pretty much gotta go to the board.
Excuse me. Yeah. We talk around it, but there was never any intent to leave the LSDs out.
I realize it, but
of course,
it's way
that's
even saying it, it's all.
Right, and that's the way, at our last meeting, we certainly had Jim at the meeting, so that the LSDs are represented in that approach. So, yeah, don't ever think that we're not including the LSDs in the final decision-making process here, because there was no intent of doing that. Yeah. Bonnie?
Just before we leave this, I think because there are so many questions and so much uncertainty around this, I think it's really great that we started the discussion on economic development. And really, I think as we go along, we're going to be the ones that are driving what happens. But I think if there's some way, it's more of a process comment, I guess. If these meetings are happening, I don't necessarily need to be at all the meetings, but it is good to know that they are happening. And even if it's just like a quick email out to the board that says, hey, we're having a meeting to talk about what economic development might look like, what transportation, whatever. We'll have an update at the board meeting, or if you want to talk about it after. I think sometimes just knowing these things are happening, it provides some certainty, some security, and a little bit of information on a topic that, let's face it, there's just not enough of out there. So more of just a process comment, I guess.
No, it's good point, Bonnie. I must admit, I didn't realize, people didn't realize that this meeting was taking place on the 20th of June. So, but certainly every time we meet at the board level, we're going to make sure you understand what's been going on. But yeah, we'll try and advertise that a little earlier. Glenn?
Well, in my other role, not as a member of this board, back, I think it was probably in December, between Kendall Katz and I, we organized a meeting because we knew that there was going to be changes in how economic development was done, and it started being talked about going to the Regional Service Commission. So we had a meeting, and Bonnie, I believe you were there with your economic development individual. the CAO from St. George, St. Andrews, nobody was available for McAdam, but anyway, we had a large group and we started talking about, okay, how are we gonna do this? This looks like it's coming. You know, looks like we're gonna be kind of somehow into some type of regional economic development. So the conversation started from the future St. Stephen and CDEC perspective and how we could kind of work together and do that for the region. Kendall Katz and I started that meeting back in, and had some discussion in a meeting back in December.
Okay. No last questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Anything else under new business before we move on to committee and staff reports? Okay. Committee and staff reports, executive director's report, Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to extend thanks and appreciation to Claudette and Alex for stepping in for me when I couldn't be here. I'm back. I'm actually back part-time right now, 3 days a week and then 4 days a week for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'm back full-time after that. I got an all clear, so far so good. And but yeah, thanks for everybody for the special thanks to Claudette and Alex. So my report. So our solid waste is trending up again this year. There's a small graph on the second page of my report part of that, and you'll see it's not a big jump or a big significant spike. It's just a steady increase in volume. So that's good. That's what we want, is a manageable increase. And that doesn't come from any one source either. Planning, the permits appear to be down, but they're not really. It's just that there were some delays on some permits getting out the door, and that has nothing to do with staff per se. It really had to do with some new regulations and some changes, and making sure people had plans that were ready to go before we went ahead with them. I believe that backlog is pretty well caught up at this point. So there's some more reporting there from we're still at a 12% diversion rate on our waste reduction on our recycling program. There is news coming in the near future for the PPP program. There has been some movement there, but nothing significant enough that I can report on any details at this point. But something is happening there, and we should know more hopefully later this year. There's some updates there from the planning director on their activities and some regional planning. The exciting part in regional planning is our housing. So we got a grant of money last year to enhance our housing study for the region. And so Xander's kind of taken the lead on that, and much of that work has been done. We've had that done by a couple of external firms that we hired to get this, and there's some really good reports. I just got a note from him today that he's just getting ready to make that stuff public, so I will forward that to the board as soon as it is ready to do. There's some good information in there, and it's information that is extremely helpful when you're moving ahead with any kind of development, or when it comes to economic development, for instance, or when it comes to workforce or any of those issues. So look for that in the near future. There's some reports there on our building inspection. I know we had a discussion last month about the earthquake zone thing. Hopefully that's been resolved. If there's any questions on that, please let one of us know. So from the recreation coordinator, we got another $5,000 grant there. There is some developments happening with Coastal Link Trail as well, and with trail, the organization of that and the development of that. Sherry's been working very hard with that, and I will have more on that again upcoming, and I will keep you abreast of that. I don't really have anything else, Mr. Chair, so that'd be my report.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Hollis on this executive report? Glenn?
No, I have really no questions on the report, but I'm in the process of building a house and it's been a learning experience. And if there's a way we could do it, I think it would be a really good, if we could communicate to people, if you're thinking about building next year, come see us this year.
We have been, I agree. 100%, I agree. In fact, and I'll just divulge this here, but one of my interview questions from earlier yesterday was my interview. One of my interview questions was, what are some of the challenges you see that the Service Commission has coming up? And I said, our biggest challenge right now and going forward that needs to be resolved, that I will resolve, is communications. So we need to do better communications. There's no question, and I agree with you 100%.
So it's not necessarily a fault of the planning commission and the RC. It's just, I still think things are somewhat like they used to be, and they're not. And it's, you know, I'm not saying that the regulations and the rules are unnecessary or unrequired, but it would be really nice if somebody's thinking about building a house next year, then come and ask some questions and get some information now.
Yeah, and we invite them.
Yeah.
And we, you know, if anybody we're more than happy to talk to anybody about their development.
Well, and it would probably save
It does.
everybody.
It definitely does.
I think also, a lot of the problem is a lot of people don't realize that they can go to the planning office and reach out.
Yeah.
I think that is the big end of it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because I've learned a lot just by being there.
I've learned a few things the hard way. And it's expensive. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Glenn.
Okay.
If there are no other questions on the executive directors or comments on that report, financial report. Dean Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the financial report, Mark did something new this month. So I would probably call your attention to the last page because there's our typical summary statement that we always have. It's a 3-page summary statement that shows where we are and what surplus position we're at. The last page is something he did that was new. I didn't even ask him for this, but it gives a good explanation about why things are the way they are right now, why our surplus is where it is. And I'm kind of happy he did this. So it was nice to have that there. So.
Yeah. Once I read through.
Good explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has any questions on the finances there otherwise, but.
Any questions or comments? Wade?
Yeah, just on the things here on the last page, it's on the, it said that we did a couple of repairs to major equipment. Or major repairs to equipment. So I'm wondering what they were and were they expected? And if not expected, how much were they?
I had just had an in-depth conversation with Mike today about this, and we talked about this at the time too, but it's a case, sometimes it's a case of our supply chain issues that we're having. So for instance, on the loader, we had an issue with one wheel, one axle, which is a big deal. But the question was, well, if we fix this and we leave the rest of it alone, are we going to be fixing that in the near future? And the answer is probably yes. So do we go ahead and fix that now where that loader is on schedule to be replaced in 2 years? But if we replace all the undercarriage now, we can push that replacement out. We can get another 8,000 hours out of it. So that was kind of the decision that was made there. The other one was that bulldozer. That was kind of an unexpected, but it was because of the undercarriage. So we had to replace chains in one track and one side. It was unexpected, but again, we sat back and looked at it and said, so this thing's a few years out from replacement. If we go ahead and spend the money now and do a good refurb of the undercarriage, then we can push that replacement out a number of more years. It'll last us that much longer. So sometimes you do a calculated risk.
Yep.
And that's what that was.
So any idea what the amount was?
It was around 96.
Yeah, 96,000.
It was 96,000, Wade.
So that was that Did we have enough in the budget for vehicle stuff for that?
We did. We had to move some stuff around, but we did.
And then the last thing on that was the when you talked about the gas costs going up, fuel costs for everything. Any estimates on that and how far outside the box that's going to be? Is it huge? Is it? I mean, we got a pretty decent surplus there, but it's good just to kind of try to keep those in check. And is anybody doing anything to try to economize on any of that stuff?
Yeah. So your guess is as good as mine is what we're going to end up with at the end of the year. I can tell you that looking at this today, so far the garbage compactor alone has about $62,000 worth of diesel this year. It depends on where fuel prices go with this. We'll be okay. You know, we have enough surplus to kind of handle this, but it costs what it costs. I mean, you know, vehicles that we're buying now, we're buying more. Instead of getting Super Duties, if we don't need to get a Super Duty, we get an F-150, and it might be a 6-cylinder. You know, we have a couple of Ford Mavericks now in the fleet. So anything we can do to get better fuel economy out of vehicles, we are.
I know that, like, I know that some of the trucking firms and stuff like that are telling their guys not to idle the trucks. So, I mean, I don't know what we're doing with our trucks with heavy equipment, things like that. If there's any, you know, people saying, you know, don't idle the equipment if it's going to be any more than so many minutes or something like that, that you're going to be off them, so on and so forth.
Yeah, Mike's all over them about idling. And not because of necessarily fuel. We had one excavator that got idled too much and it ruined the engine because he had glazing on cylinders. But yeah, so you know, that's always an issue. I tell you what, the bigger issue and the looming problem could be for us right now is DEF. There's apparently a big shortage of DEF coming, and it's kind of an issue now. So, and that price of that stuff went up. So
What's DEF?
You need that for diesel engines.
Yeah, it's a diesel emission. You have to have it or your emission stuff doesn't work and your engine shuts down and the computers shut it off.
Oh, okay.
You have to top it up.
And it's a real pain in the butt.
Okay, I had no idea. Glenn.
Well, I guess my question is, with our gas, is there potential to convert anything or to gas rather than diesel?
You're talking about landfill gas?
Yep.
Yeah, gasoline engines could run on methane once we get to the point where we could extract methane.
And it would probably be, we get a lot more for the methane burning that way than selling it. Yep.
Yeah, so I have some news on the flare. I guess I can tell you guys now about it, but Jim brought to my attention that there is a new marketplace opened up by the federal government for carbon credits.
Yeah.
And the carbon credit thing is and they're specifically named municipal landfills as a potential source of obtaining these carbon credits if we destroy the landfill gas. So our timing is perfect for the new wells and the piping we've drilled in the flare, which is just about ready to turn on. So I told Mike, don't turn it on until we get this in place, because we can potentially sell these credits to people like Irving for pretty good revenue just because we're destroying the gas. So I have a whole crew of people working on that application, getting that in. So.
Yeah. Can we mention a number? We calculate these credits could be quite lucrative for the landfill. And we're talking significant money here. I don't know whether we want to actually say a price or.
I don't want to say one.
We won't say that, but what I would say is that it's a significant amount of money that we could be looking at. So it's a good thing they're looking at these carbon credits, and it's a good thing Jim brought it up because I never would have thought of it.
Methane is like 5 times worse than carbon.
Yeah. John Dedorakis, you have a hand up?
Yeah, actually, I have 2 points. Wade mentioned about idling policy, and I just, that's my first point of my question is, I wonder if all the people around here who have a council or I guess a policy, do municipalities around this table have idling policy?
Idling, oh.
So, okay. Okay, so we're gonna take the bragging rights on that one because St. George has one. Go ahead, Alan. You want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
We don't have a policy that I know of 100%, but I do know we have GPS on all our vehicles, and we can tell when they're idling or sitting still or not where they're supposed to be or type things. So we're controlling our fleet that way.
Okay. The second point that I want to say, I'm following up on Glenn's comment about communications, and I'm a bit off time here, but I missed the opportunity. I just wonder if we ever have done any sort of benchmarking with regards to the regulatory burden and the number of inspections that were put in comparison with other similar jurisdictions, like for example Nova Scotia rural areas or PI, because I just fear that we maybe if you have like 10 inspectors, they're going to do like 100 inspections. If you have like 100 inspectors, they're going to be 1,000 inspections. So I just wondering if we ever do any sort of calibration about how we stand with other similar entities when it comes to regulating housing construction and planning, etc. So, Hollis, if you have any comment on that one?
We're behind. So we're not as strict as we should be.
Oh.
In the province.
Within the province?
Yeah, like compared to other jurisdictions, yeah. But we're not like far behind, but we could, and we're working on that. But some of that is compliance and just plain catching people that are building without a permit. It's getting better. It's gotten a lot better, over the past 4 years than what it was, but we still have work to do.
Any last questions on the financial report? I know we've deviated off that a little bit, but any other questions? Okay. Anything else you would like to bring up?
I do. Yeah. Sorry about that. Back to the finance, if we could.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
So when you're discussing the loader replacement and investing dollars and pushing it down the road 3 years or whatever, is that going to be laid out in our budget? Because there could be a new group around this table and they need to know how that money moved and why. Or is it just?
No, we have a 10-year capital plan, and that always comes up with your budget as well. This year is going to be interesting because the budget will be presented to this board. They won't vote on it. That's the only difference. But no, the capital budget, and we revise that every year. Like I said, we might have had equipment on there that I've now pushed down the road a couple of years because we did enough major repairs to it. But no, there's a 10-year capital replacement plan, and that's part of our. That'll be part of our plan.
On top of that, Alan, we had originally scheduled a meeting to go through that capital plan to make sure that we were up to date on everything there. The Finance and Audit Committee are going to meet again. We're waiting for Hollis to come back. We needed to get Mike in place and a couple of other things. And so we will be having that meeting sometime over, I don't know, within the next month or so to go through that capital plan so that we can let everybody know. When that $96,000 expense first came out, that caught our eye as a board, and that's why we decided we'd like to have a review of that capital plan. But it got delayed because we didn't have the right people in place. But now that we do, we'll get back into that and have a look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. Any last questions? Anything you'd like to bring up? Oh, everybody wants to go home. Okay. The next scheduled meeting will be August 25th, 2022, 6 p.m. Now, we normally do that. We make a motion not to hold the July meeting. And so I'm saying that we're going to have it on August 25th. is there enough going on that you think we should be meeting in July, or would you think we can push it out? Glenn?
Well, I think with the discussion that we have around economic development, we'll have to have a meeting on that before August 25th.
Yeah.
But do you think that would be like a special meeting of the board on that one topic, or is it a regular board meeting?
Doesn't, I don't know.
Cover that part of not so.
Yeah.
But you
It's
get other
really
things
special.
into it, you're taking your time away from that when you approve your whole board meeting. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna go through the whole board meeting, you're gonna be spending at least an hour there. That's an hour that you could be putting towards your economic development.
So it's probably a special meeting then.
Okay, so maybe, well, it's up to the executive committee to call a special meeting, but we'll have to wait until.
This board, as
To
it's
be
constituted, will only have 2 more meetings, August and September. And then the elections will be called in mid-October before we would have our October meeting, so we wouldn't meet in October. So we're only gonna meet, unless it's a special meeting, we're only scheduled to meet twice after this.
So with everything that's going on with the mandate of the RSC, with economic development, public safety, community development, and everything, there's probably gonna have to be a couple of special meetings.
Well, I know the consensus that I feel from the folks on the board is that we need to have another meeting to go through economic development so that we have the ability to raise more questions. And I would certainly like to do that. If you guys don't mind, can we shoot for third week in July? We'll do a little more work here before we get you guys in, but I think we need to meet at a special meeting just for economic development prior to the end of July.
Could we keep that to our 4th?
I can't see why we couldn't. We could just stick it with that same Thursday that we would have done. Is there any opposition to looking at that? Okay, well, we'll look at the 3rd Thursday again on the month. Of July, 4th Thursday, sorry, 4th. Don't you worry. I'll
Well,
get
the
it.
third is the fact.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be the 4th Thursday of the month of July, and it'll be a special meeting for discussing economic development. We'll be able to hopefully give you an update as to where we are, but if we don't give you an update, we'll at least give you what we've done so far in our discussion so that we can at least discuss that. I want to keep, knowledge is not universal, but we want to keep it as universal as possible. Thanks, guys. We'll send out an email letting everybody know when that special meeting is going to be held. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move adjourn.
That Dennis, he's quick. Okay, thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah. Well, I didn't invite Harvey and you guys to that meeting because I knew you weren't going to be agreed. Right? You weren't. I wasn't leaving you out.